Welcome back to Let's Unpack That. It's a podcast where two mid-20-year-olds, sort of, kind of, almost, actually 2 years post-grad as of today, April 28th.
Oh, wow,
2 years
really?
post-grad. Amazing. Don't know how that happened. We analyze books that we read as teenagers and look them over from a sociopolitical and literary critiquing-ish perspective. In any case, I'm Nenah.
I'm Lydia.
Yeah, dude, 2 years ago we walked across that stage. That was arguably the worst day of my life.
Really? Why?
You don't remember what a complete and utter just shit show I was? Like, I was so stressed out. I think most of the gray hair that I have now is because of that day, because I was so stressed about
Wow.
moving out of the dorm. I was so stressed about pleasing my parents who were in town, who wanted to go to do all these things with my family. And then also I was just devastated to be leaving you guys. So, no, yeah, that was arguably like the day that I have felt the most just, yeah, no. Great day, but also probably arguably the worst.
Yeah, I remembered you being a mess, but not that quite that much of a mess. I don't
Apparently
know.
I'm good at
Memories fade.
repressing. Any case, 2 years. What have you learned in the 2 years?
I don't know. I guess I can call myself officially an adult now. It feels
Yeah.
like a lot longer than 2 years. And it's hard to
Yeah,
believe that we saw each other less than a year ago.
I know. It feels like it's been a decade. But
Yeah.
actually, I was going to say similar things that, like, I can actually adult, which I
Uh-huh.
didn't expect to be able to do. So, that's all worked out well. That was nice. That was a nice surprise.
I
Yeah.
handle my own business.
Yeah.
Adult business.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for joining us here again, guys. Hopefully you know the name of the game by now, but if not, I'll go ahead and remind you for the sake of continuity. We are reading The Hunger Games, and right now we are working on chapters 19 and 20. A lot of stuff has just happened. This is the turning point for the book and the series as a whole. We talked a little bit last time about how in sort of the 3-act breakdown of this story, the way the book is actually split into 3 parts, but then also just the standard 3-part action, climax, and then falling action, or kind of how Lydia described it last week. This is part 3 of the book, and so a lot of things have just happened. Of course, we got through the fact that not Prim. Wow, see, even I do it. Rue. So Rue died, and then they went ahead and announced the rule change for the Hunger Games, and essentially saying that 2 people can win the Hunger Games if they are from the same district. And as of right now, the 2 people, or the 2 groups of people who have their other half, I guess, for lack of a better word, from their district, is District 2, so that's Cato and Clove. We'll later find out her name. And then Katniss and Peeta. Everyone else, actually, besides those 2, Clove and Cato, there's actually only Thresh left, and he is, again, District 11. And then there's Foxface, who I believe is District 5. So we're coming down to the wire here in terms of who's left. It's now down to 6. And where we left off, we had just heard that rule change. So that's kind of where we left off at that kind of big reveal. Do you want to go ahead and summarize
Yeah.
this chapter for us?
Sure. So, chapter 19, like Nenah said, we're in Act 3 now, the final act, which is going to contain the climax and the resolution. So, here's chapter 19. After calling out Peeta's name aloud, Katniss prepares herself and then she goes to find him. She realized that Peeta has actually been playing the star-crossed lovers angle all along, and that now it's her turn to play it too. So everything he's done in the arena has been to keep her alive, and he has convinced the audience enough that they believe in the couple from District 12.
Somehow.
So Katniss begins her search by the stream, which would be a good place for Peeta, not too far from where Cato injured him, and also a vital source of water. She starts from where the careers camped and got stung by the tracker jackers back when she dropped the nest on them, and she looks until she finds traces of blood on the rocks. So she follows them until she hears Peeta's voice directly under her feet, and he has camouflaged himself under layers of mud and moss. So she gets him out, she cleans him up, and she works on his wounds. She uses the leaves that Rue showed her to draw out the poison from the Tracker Jacker stings and from the wound in his leg, which is apparently bone deep. They find a little cave a little ways downstream, and they settle into it. And Peeta thanks Katniss for finding him, and she kisses him to keep up the lovey-dovey act. And then, as a reward, Haymitch sends them a pot of broth. So this is where the romance plot starts.
Yeah. Two things. I just want to jump in. It feels like forever ago that we got to the part where Katniss dropped the nest on the careers. Like, Jesus Christ. That was like, what, day 2, day 3? Second, I don't know why I thought of this, but talking about the wound in his leg, fun side story. So I'm staying with a friend and I have my dog with me, and she also has a dog, but he is a small Chihuahua mix, Chihuahua Corgi in all likelihood. That's pretty much what he looks like. And then my dog, of course, is like a Aussie Shepherd Border Collie something mix. He's about 50 pounds and the Chihuahua was probably about 15. They got into a scuffle the other day, and the Chihuahua ended up with a rip in his side, just a little one, probably about the size of a quarter. And we drove to the vet, and they wanted $900 to sew that shit up. $900.
What?
Oh yeah. So we called our mobile vet, and she did it for $100.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. So anyway, now we make fun of his $900 injury, which he is fine, by the way. He's walking around and growling and just, being quirky, just like normal, but just a funny thought. I don't know. I saw a wound and I was like, hey, I've had a weekend of wounds, actually. Just going to the vet with that little doggy. And actually, I probably should call the vet and get my dog in for a checkup. Just get his shots done.
Yeah.
And I'm getting my horse's teeth floated on Saturday. Yay. It's gonna be expensive.
Your horse's what?
His teeth floated?
Teeth don't float. What?
That's so funny that you said that. No, I know. So when it oh my god.
Teach me your horse girl ways, Nenah.
Actually, can I just tell you this quick side story? Speaking of horse girl ways, my ex texted me a couple weeks ago. And
no.
yeah. But here's what he asked me. He sent me a TikTok of a girl doing her makeup and talking about how, growing up, she was around horses and had to like clean out the horse's sheaths and whatnot and clean their penis and whatever. It's what you do. And like the like punchline of her video was like, so when I lost my virginity, it was a huge relief because boys had a lot smaller penises than a horse did. Which I was crying laughing. I was like, isn't that the truth? But my ex texted
but also,
me. And
why did your ex send it to you?
He texted me and he goes, do you actually have to clean their dicks? And I was like, yes, I do. And he goes, that's wild. And I said, yep. And that was the end of the conversation. I haven't heard from him since.
Okay.
That was a side story.
Yes, horse girl was.
Teeth, when you get teeth floated on a horse, it's actually filing down their teeth so they can chew their grain and their hay better. Because, out in the wild when they're grazing constantly, they're also ingesting rocks or just, there's different roughage that keeps their teeth from
growing too big?
Yeah, because they're constantly growing. Their teeth are always growing. And that just keeps them filed down. But when they're domesticated, like we have them now, their teeth tend to just grow and grow and grow. And when you have a bit in their mouth, or if it just goes for too long, they can actually get really sharp points in their mouth. And it'll cause it to be really painful to have a bit in their mouth, or cause them to have problems eating. If you see a horse that's eating like grain and dropping a lot of the grain on the floor, that's usually a sign that he needs to get his teeth floated because he can't chew on it anymore. So, fortunately, Jasper's not in pain, and he's, it's just a routine thing that you do once a year, twice a year, depending on the horse. But yeah, I have to go and get that done. So he'll have his head stuck in a little, I don't know, it's kind of funny. They like stick his head in a little holder thing and like crank his mouth open. So he's just standing there with his like jaw agape, and then they just file down the points of his teeth. I just kind of let him be.
Why do you call it floating?
I don't know. Let me look.
By the way, for those of you who don't know us in person, we've hit on another one of Nenah's expertise points, politics and horses.
Yay! If you haven't figured that out by now, go back and listen to this whole series. So the type of file they used is called a float, which is where they get the name horse floating. And I'll send you a picture.
That's a whole drill.
Yeah, some of them use a drill, some of them use a hand file. So you can see a couple pictures down. There's a hand file. But if you also look, there's a couple of pictures explaining, like, hey, this is how their teeth, like, can get these points, just how they eat, and you need to get them fixed.
Oh.
It's so much fun. I might have her do a sheath cleaning while she's there.
I have learned a thing today.
Anyway, that was your horse lesson for today, and a fun story about my ex.
Yay. All right, so back to the Hunger Games.
Yeah, back to the Hunger Games, the point of this whole thing. Haymitch sends them a pot of broth, and as you mentioned, this is where the romance plot gets started in earnest.
Yep, I kind of hate it.
Yeah, same.
We've talked before about how Peeta and Haymitch are kind of collaborating and how they're manipulating Katniss into going through with this.
There's a whole dissertation on it.
Yeah, she's avoided it almost the entire time in the arena, but now it's time to play her part, and it's hella awkward, and I resent Haymitch a lot.
This whole chapter, reading it, it's like, oh, no, I'm not going to send you life-saving medicine for him. Unless you kiss him. Or I'm not going to send you food unless you kiss him. It's like, oh, really? Really?
Yeah, like how she says, 1 kiss equals 1 pot of broth. It's like, okay,
cool.
Thanks. We're doing this the old-fashioned way, bribing Katniss with treats.
Here, kitty.
Like she's an animal having to go along with this. So at the beginning of this chapter, though, Katniss solidly decides that Peeta has to be her ally. She says, whatever doubts I've had about him dissipate because if either of us took the other's life now, we'd be pariahs when we return to District 12. And that's from page 247. So probably not only would District 12 feel betrayed, but the rest of the Panem would feel like they had been sold a lie. I don't know if Katniss was secretly looking for a reason not to have to kill Peeta. She hasn't wanted to kill him in the past, but this is really an excuse not to have to kill him. She's still not totally down with the romance, but she has accepted at this point that Peeta has played his cards in a certain way, and she has to go along with it if she wants to survive.
I mean, I think she's always dreaded the idea of killing him, just given their history before any of this took place with the bread and helping save her life. That was definitely something she was not looking forward to. She was definitely praying someone else would kill him, or maybe that he would win. So I definitely think she was I don't know if she was looking for a reason not to kill him, because I think if it were left between the two of them, she would she would definitely kill him. And at least this is a relief to her, feeling like, crap, I really didn't want to do this. And now she's like, oh, I don't have to. And also, if you think about it, I feel like this isn't super touched on, but I like the point that you made that the rest of Panem would feel betrayed if one of them killed the other. Because let's assume it comes down to Katniss and Peeta and one of them dies and the other one lives. Even though they would be the champion of that year's Hunger Games, they still have to be in the public eye after all of this. They still have to be part of, the victory tours and mentoring and everything like that. So their life would probably be pretty hellish. It would be, they would always be questioned about the other person, and they would always be questioned about what were you thinking or how could you? And then eventually it might even come out that, like, yeah, we were just playing the game. It might also be enough to get them killed. I mean, we know from further books that the contestants in the games who have won have been sold off for sex slavery. They've been manipulated. Heck, let's say if Katniss ended up killing Peeta, she might end up dead herself within a year or two just because of that.
Right. Because you always have to appease the fans in the most brutal way.
Yeah. I also have to wonder, does she think that Peeta has a chance of surviving? Or does she think that she will get supplies by uniting with him and eventually be the only one left? The feeling that I got, this is definitely not a search out of compassion or love, which I feel like when we're reading the book and discussing the movie just in contemporary, they make it seem like, I've heard it made out to be that Katniss has always loved Peeta since the beginning. That's not true. It's kind of funny, but the whole Hunger Games trilogy saga was actually made to be into this big romance plot anyway. It was Team Peeta or Team Gale kind of doing exactly what the people in the actual books were doing with the whole thing, instead of actually looking at the message of the book itself. And so people are like, oh my gosh, she's loved him this whole time. And I think I even thought that at one point, like, oh my gosh, she's loved Peeta this whole time. When I was 13 and reading this book for the first time, I was like, yes, of course she loves him. Of course she does. That makes sense. Reading it now, this is not something out of compassion or love. This is a feeling of a debt repaid, and this is a survival tactic. This is saying, great, we can unite, we can be stronger, we can both live, and we'll both get out of here. This is not her thinking, I'm going to go to him because I've loved him this whole time. This is a survival mode.
Yeah. As she's realizing that she almost instinctively went to unite with him, she's also realizing that he has always tried to help her survive, which brings another element of doubt and debt into it. Because not only did he throw her the bread that one time, he threw her a lifeline when he told her to run from Cato and when he fought Cato on her behalf. So she decides solidly here, Peeta, it turns out, has never been a danger to me. And I think we can say this as readers because we see, like, he's deep in this and he can't get out of it now, and he's probably genuinely in love with her. But she hasn't been sure at all up to this point. She hasn't been sure of what's an act, what's manipulation, what's real. So what has changed? I think it's that she has to choose consciously to believe that he's not a danger to her so that they can both survive. Because honestly, that's the only way forward in this game. If she hadn't gone to find him, what would she have done? Well, the game makers would have just forced her to go find him. Because this is the story that he's telling, and this is the story that she has to participate in, so she has to accept that she's participating in it. Speaking of survival and finding Peeta, how is he still alive?
How the hell?
How in the world has he survived this long in the wild, in the mud, in the dirt, without food, barely any water? How is he still even conscious? Like,
for the drama.
Yeah, for the drama, but like also here we encounter a similar dilemma to what we encountered in the previous chapter with Rue, is what has he been doing with all this missing time?
Yeah.
Has he just been wallowing in this little pit of mud in pain?
And I just want to know what he's done in terms of like keeping this love story alive, because I feel like if you were watching the games, that idea is dead. Like that love romance story has been just over since they got into the arena. So I feel like the idea of him lying in mud and dying while Katniss is out there thriving and blowing shit up is one thing, but she has been playing up this romance thing. What convinced the game makers to bring them back together? Up until this point, it was virtually dead. So what, was he just laying there in the mud talking about Katniss to the cameras? Was he just going there, Katniss, 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 while he was unconscious? Did we see something the audience didn't see? How is he doing any of this? But yeah, to your point, how has he managed to stay alive? I mean, that's pretty serious, getting cut on the thigh like that, isn't it?
Yes, it is super serious. We know that Cato cut him on the thigh all the way down to the bone. So it's possible, nay, likely, that Cato meant to cut into his femoral artery, which is the main artery that runs through each of the legs, and it runs along the inside of the thigh, right along the bone. With a damaged femoral artery, it could take only seconds for Peeta to bleed out.
Oh, God.
Longer if he was able to apply pressure to the wound, but I mean, he was also incapacitated by the Tracker Jacker stings, so we have to assume he spent either the same 2 days or more asleep like Katniss, because he didn't take out the stingers.
Right.
So there's even more time. So interestingly, the National Center for Biotechnology Information published the results of a study in 2006 that says you can stop blood flow to the femoral artery with pressure to the distal abdominal aorta, which is in the lower abdomen,
whatever that
or
means.
The proximal iliac artery, which is like basically pressing directly into your hip bone.
Oh.
So it takes a lot of pressure to completely stop the blood flow, up to 160 pounds, but even just 20 pounds of pressure has been shown to help. Also, I'm, side note, not a doctor, and this is not medical advice. And if I'm wrong about these artery positions, it's because my Google search and my 1 year as an editorial assistant for anatomy and physiology have failed me. So feel free to let me know if that's the case. But because of this, we can safely assume that Cato didn't hit the femoral artery like he meant to, which is what has allowed Peeta to survive all this time. Still, he's been cut down to the bone, which is a lot. And it's probably why he ends up losing his leg, because there are critical nerve and muscle structures in there that run to the whole leg that have now been damaged.
Right.
And so that even the capital technology can't repair them. But he's got a serious injury. It could be more serious, but I mean, even though it didn't hit an artery, it's a wonder he hasn't bled out by now.
Does that mud have medicinal properties? Is he lying about getting some kind of help? Like, how did he do this? I don't know. It's a little bit of, I guess, I want to say writing for the sake of the story, but that's the whole fucking point.
That's what it feels like, yeah.
But you know what I mean, right? Like, it's kind of like, I'm just going to bend the rules slightly. Oh, here's a thought, though. You know how they get the trackers put into their arms?
Yeah.
And it, like, monitors when their heart stops pumping, and that's how the cannons go off?
Yeah.
What if those trackers can also keep them alive, just barely? What if that tracker in his arm, the game makers are, like, somehow manipulating his body to just keep him alive just long enough for Katniss to find him? Because the wound gets a lot worse after she finds him. Like, quickly gets a lot worse.
Yeah.
But if it's been days and days and days, who's to say that they aren't subtly, changing his physiology, changing his body, changing whatever it is to keep him alive, just to keep him alive long enough for Katniss to find him. I'm not saying that they have to pull the final trigger, but maybe it's kind of like a life support that can just keep him alive just enough so that Katniss can find him.
Maybe it is in the tracker, but maybe they put clean mud
Something
in there.
I feel like,
or maybe like some medicine in the mud.
I don't know. Like, I feel like there has to be something helping him survive here. And to me, having that tracker in their arm that monitors their, it monitors their temperature, it monitors their heartbeat, it monitors their air, maybe it's not just a one-way street. Maybe it's a two-way street, and they're manipulating it somehow so he can stay alive.
Or maybe, like, it has an electric shock system where, like, each time he would almost go unconscious and, like, start to die, it would shock him back awake.
Yeah, or maybe it's programming his body to regenerate more blood cells faster, so he has a little bit more clean blood going through his system, and then they turn it off by the time Katniss finds him.
Nanobots.
Yeah.
That is so weird.
Isn't that crazy?
I don't know if we're meant to assume that he's being artificially kept alive, or if we're meant to, I mean...
I don't know. I don't
know if we're reading too far into it. That's the thing.
I was going to say, I don't think Collins meant for us to read into it this far. But I'm just going to say, for the sake of the universe, that's what I think is going on.
Okay, book-wise, it's a plot point. Us-wise, it's some freaky technology.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so he is alive. He's under a layer of mud and moss, and he has painted himself to look like the mud and moss in a way so that Katniss cannot see him. First line that he says when she finds him is,
"You're here to finish me off, sweetheart."
You should have whiskey and a cigar. That's disgusting. That's an old man line. And that's on page 252. Like, also, nobody else uses that word in this series except for Haymitch. That's literally Haymitch's word in his mouth.
Hey, my boyfriend calls me sweetheart, so it's not, well, but then again, we always
Your boyfriend is also a grown-ass man.
Well, that's true.
And not a 16-year-old.
And we also joke that we're older on the inside because we're just, for multiple reasons, we're just aged. So, maybe so.
It's still so weird.
It is weird. And
'Cause
even
it's
weirder,
Haymitch's language.
I didn't even make that connection until you said that, but that's, yeah, it's a Haymitch line. Come on, sweetheart. Like, I don't know. Just don't do that. And then even weirder, he's saying this while he's laying in the mud. In the movie, they did this so, like, oh God,
It looked perfect.
oh God,
It looked like a rock.
why? And then I love this. I guess all those hours of decorating cakes paid off. Get the fuck out of here.
I want to say that's the most memorable line in the book. The whole decorating cakes thing.
You mean other than I volunteer as tribute?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's just the weirdest connection. And I think it's her trying to make a joke, but it's so awkward.
Oh, she's definitely trying to make it light. And that's because
Yeah.
we're going to get into this, but she has no bedside manner. She's trying to make it a joke. So, yeah. And we see that here now that she's going to try her best, but, she's a little squeamish.
Yeah. She says, ironically, at this point in the games, my little sister would be of far more use to Peeta than I am, on page 256. Because she's squeamish. Even though she kills animals for a living, basically, she is afraid of human wounds. And we learned that she would even leave her mother's house when people were coughing in there and had come for cough remedies. So, similar to kind of Bella's hemophobia, this is another one of those character quirks that, like, how can you be afraid of this but not this? I'm left wondering how Katniss can be afraid of human wounds, and yet she kills animals without batting an eye. So she still forces herself to clean Peeta's wound, washing away the disgusting pus and the mud, and she's super uncomfortable, and yet she's still acting the part. So we're going to talk more about animals later and maybe why Katniss has this character quirk.
Yeah.
But here we are. Peeta isn't pretending to love her, but she's pretending to love him. And to stop him from talking about what will happen if he dies, she kisses him. And it's her first kiss, and all she can think about is his fever.
Love it.
He also says, remember, we're madly in love, so it's all right to kiss me anytime you feel like it, on page 253.
I'm going to punch you in the face. Yeah.
Ugh. Like, he's literally... Oh, I hate this so much. He's literally manipulating her into loving him.
He's really acting like Haymitch right now.
The game is playing in his favor.
Yeah.
The game makers are playing into this story and his version of events.
I mean, how many times do we see something like this? What is it? A Walk to Remember, where the female protagonist goes like, one condition, you can't fall in love with me. And then, oh my God, just kidding, he falls in love with her. Like, this is a trope that has been used again and again and again. I will point out here, though, that she doesn't actually fall in love with him until way later in the series. But
oh, yes.
It's kind of, but on his side, he's already fallen in love with her. Or at least he's thinking he's fallen in love with her. So he's that one side of the coin that's already dropped,
Right, yeah.
And also, this is such a dumb line. Like, we're madly in love, so it's all right to kiss me anytime you feel like it. Who is he trying to convince? Is it himself or her? And at what point does Peeta stop thinking they're play acting to actually being in love?
Yeah, this made me wonder almost, is Peeta also acting? Because we've confirmed up to this point that Katniss is being manipulated. But possibly also Peeta's being manipulated. Like, maybe he told Haymitch, yeah, I used to have a crush on her. Like, it was just a tiny crush.
Yeah.
And then that got blown out of proportions, so now he is deeply in love with her.
Yeah.
Circumstance has forced them together, and now Peeta has to work within the circumstance, and the game makers are forcing the circumstance almost to work. I don't know if Peeta is aware that he's manipulating Katniss. I don't know if he's aware that he has been manipulated. But also remember, he's 16. They're both kids, and they're both being played with for like little Barbie dolls.
Yeah.
For the Capitol.
But, unfortunately, this is genius level in terms of their mentors and the strategy, because people have been and always will be enamored by, quote, love, and especially celebrity love lives and things that they can idolize. I was looking at this chapter and kind of thinking, okay, So clearly something's going on here that is strong enough to want to drive the game makers to push them together. But why is it? Why is this such a compelling storyline for them to tell? And I started thinking about, like I just said, people have always been enamored by celebrity love lives. I myself, as a young tween, I spent a good amount of time obsessing over celebrity romances. And I'm looking at you, Joe Jonas and Taylor Swift. Thanks for killing the idea that love could exist. Still heartbroken. Just kidding. And if you think about it, today's culture is still very much centered around the idea of love and romance, even so much when it's seen on TV or a computer screen. Right now, if you look, some of the top streaming shows include Love is Blind and Too Hot to Handle on Netflix, and they've amassed a serious gathering on social media. And I remember being, 14, and wondering who Amy was going to end up with in The Secret Life of the American Teenager. Was it going to be Ben or was it going to be Ricky? Never mind the fact that the story was originally created as a warning to young people, such as myself, about the potential to become pregnant and to shame anything other than abstinence, which is problematic in itself and can probably be a whole separate podcast series. But, or a little bit past that, Vampire Diaries, Elaine and Stefan, or is it going to be Elena and Damon? It's always been this, is she going to be with him or her? Who are we obsessed with? And now it's Meghan and Harry, Kim and Kanye, Dylan and Mallory. Wait, hold on.
See, we're justified in shipping them, and that's it.
We are justified in shipping them. It's fine. Regardless, we love other people's love stories, and especially when it's on a platform that's so easy to idolize and just idealize, too. Reality TV, celebrity lives inside of a TV drama. But why? I turned to the internet, and as always, she does not disappoint me, unlike many men seem to do. I was looking into a little bit of the psychology behind it, and I found a great article on Queen's Journal. It's called Breaking Down Why We Are Obsessed with Celebrity, or Why We Are Obsessed with Celebrity Relationships. And I was really looking for, why are we obsessed with Katniss and Peeta? Or why is the Capitol obsessed with Katniss and Peeta? In terms of why we, in the real world, in reality, are obsessed with these idealized romance tropes on the big screen. But this took a surprising turn. From the article that I found on Queen's Journal, they actually note, and I'm going to directly read this line here, we get invested in famous couples not only because we like a certain actor or admire a model's skill, but because a celebrity's lifestyle is inspirational or aspirational, including their love lives. Admiring celebrities is all about trying to emulate them. From dressing like them to following their workout regimens or admiring their fancy cars and houses, we look up to celebrities as role models, whether consciously or not. And I thought, well, how does that fit in with Katniss and Peeta? The people in the Capitol don't aspire to have a life like theirs. In fact, they do everything they can to keep their lives as different as possible from the districts, as physically and mentally possible. They are 300 degrees of separation. But I have a couple of theories. Could it just be the drama aspect? I think that's probably likely. It could just be the fact that we enjoy seeing it. Could it be the idea of the Prince and the Pauper, rags to riches? Or is it just as simple as why we root for the Meerkat clan on the documentary and mourn for them when they lose their alpha female? It's imaginary connections that are given to them in the same way we imagine connections to celebrities. Side note, my brother and I watched a documentary on a Meerkat clan in Africa, and we really loved it. It was a series on Animal Planet, and then the female alpha Meerkat died, and we were really sad and traumatized by it. So that's where I get that from. So,
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the reason why we love these love stories, aside from wanting to believe that love is possible for ourselves and almost aspiring to a level of being desired and having to choose between two people who both desire us, I think also is, in terms of the inequality between the capital and the districts, it's kind of inspiration porn, because the capital people gain entertainment from these poor teenagers and their deaths, but also gain enjoyment by seeing how love finds a way in this situation.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what I was playing off of. And so I thought it was interesting that this article was saying, oh, we want to be like celebrities.
Yeah.
Maybe not. And maybe Katniss and Peeta don't necessarily fit into the celebrity mold, but they're pretty close.
I think that might be more towards reality TV.
Maybe.
And like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. Not necessarily The Hunger Games.
Maybe. But I kept looking a little bit more, and I found, as always, Psychology Today, please sponsor us, we love you. They had an article that says why we are obsessed with celebrities. and it was an article from 2009 by Dr. Nathan Heflick. And I liked this one a lot, and I'm going to apologize for the long text. I'm just going to read this directly from the article itself. It's talking about Tiger Woods. So, picking up here in the article, beyond that, we all admire Tiger Woods' ability to golf. And the motherload of research shows that when people are amazing, or even good at one thing, this tends to transmit to perceptions in other areas, the halo effect. So, as absurd as it sounds to me right now, we expect Tiger to be more moral, more intelligent, more whatever else is good. And when this ability to see him as universally awesome is broken, we get a little annoyed or even irate. Another interesting possibility derives from the terror management theory. As I've written in past blogs, this theory starts with the assumption that people generally want to live for as long as possible, but they know that they will die, and this potentially is very disturbing. So humans do the best they can. They ignore death and they overestimate their health and underestimate their risk for diseases and etc. They also invest in meaning systems that will prevail after they die. So yeah, death is a bummer. It maybe even scares the living daylights out of a lot of us, but it sucks less if we live on in some way post-death, either symbolically through loved ones and our cultural beliefs or through our spiritual beliefs. So, in other words, we love celebrities because they are an integral part of culture. They've made it into the worldview we are so entrenched in. By worshiping them to an extent, we feel as though we are participating in this hugely important cause or belief system. And that makes us feel all warm and fuzzy inside and like our life matters. And in turn, death doesn't sting as much. I kind of liked this idea. I liked this theory a lot. The games demonstrates to the capital people that even amongst their lavish lifestyles, their big hair, and their brightly colored skin, there's still one bleak reminder to the one thing that gets everybody in Panem at the end: death. The games reminds them that while they may not end their lives in the same bloody scene on national television, death is still in the air, and it's still waiting for them. Maybe they're idolizing and grasping onto the idea of Katniss and Peeta's relationship and hoping somehow that they will cheat their certain death, because in a way it allows them to live vicariously through them, and maybe, just maybe, they too feel like they can cheat death. You know, maybe they're feeling like, okay, if they can overcome the odds, maybe I can too. Very much on a meta psychological level. Not directly thinking this, but I think it pulls on to that idea of the terror management theory, that they're trying to avoid this idea of death and saying, okay, if they can win against the odds, maybe they can too. At least give them that little bit of relief. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's really interesting. It's almost the vicariously living through these people, even though they don't want to be tributes. They can enjoy the vicarious thrill. Like, we experience the adrenaline when two characters kiss on TV, even though we aren't in that relationship. They experience the thrill of cheating death like the tributes. That's really interesting. That's fascinating.
Isn't that cool? Or people could just be gross and love drama. I wanted to look a little bit more.
That too.
Yeah, I wanted to look a little bit more into why we love drama so much, but I figured it would be a while, so I'm going to leave it at that. But I'm kind of tearing into that idea of, okay, they've got to be afraid of their own mortality. Just everything about the capital culture screams. I mean, everything about the capital when it's described is artificial and glass and, you know, made in this everlasting, you know, whatever. It's tradition. It's and they're trying to make themselves live longer by disguising their ages, and you know, they're taking it to an extreme level that we as a culture are probably growing towards. They've just taken it another step, you know, in the future. So to me, I think it's that terror management theory that they're hoping if there's any way that these two can survive death, maybe the rest of us can too.
Yeah, and what is Panem's motto even? Panem yesterday, Panem today, Panem forever?
Yeah, no, you're totally right.
And yet, the Hunger Games have only been going on for 74 years. That's not a long time.
No.
Almost a human lifespan, though.
No, ma'am.
So if Panem ends,
Yeah.
life ends.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor for life and death.
Let's get this.
The whole
bread.
country is... Wow, that kind of rocked my brain a bit.
I know. Let's take a minute here. Oh, man.
Wow. Just thinking about how much media has been produced since we were in middle school that involves a love triangle.
Ugh.
There's so much of it.
I mean, Bella, Edward, and Jacob were kind of the original love triangle.
Yeah, they kind of were, and they kickstarted that trope in YA, I think.
Yeah.
But like even earlier than that, you have in Buffy, you have it in Gilmore Girls, you have it in, like you were saying, Vampire Diaries, and all these shows that I didn't watch.
Can we pause really quick? Can I pause and show you this? Just really briefly. I just need to show you something. It's very important.
Yes.
It's very important.
Baby! Baby boy! Oh, boo! So
For those of you
cute.
listening at home, my dog is currently splayed out on the bed, looking very cute.
Is he asleep?
Yeah. Oh, he's asleep.
That is the weirdest dog.
He is the weirdest thing ever. And it's funny, watch, if I do this, if I go over and pet him, this is what he'll do. No? There he goes. There he goes. There he goes.
Stretch.
But Mommy loves you. Mommy loves you.
Okay, back to sleep. He's like, what? I was just getting started. I was just getting used to being pet.
Good boy. Speaking of true love, I love this dog. And you can keep that in the
Yes.
podcast. My dog does this thing where if you're petting him and he rolls over on his back, he likes to stick one paw straight in the air. Just extends his leg out and just stays there with one paw straight up like rigor mortis or something. I don't know. This is something he has always done. This is something he will do practically on command, as he just demonstrated for Lydia just now.
That is amazing.
Weird? Are you a weird dog? True love. This is not it between Katniss and Peeta, folks.
Yeah, it's certainly not it. At best, it's a fake dating scenario, which is a favorite trope of fan fiction, and the entire premise of some rom-coms. Works
True.
like To All the Boys I've Loved Before, which I know we both enjoyed, by Jenny Han, and Hot Dog Girl by Jennifer Dugan. Those are just some recent YA publications, but I can link a whole Goodreads list in the description. But fake dating, it always happens, and when it happens, it always turns into real love. So while this turns into real love by the end of the series, at least I should hope so if she ends up marrying him and carrying 2 of his children, it's important to note that Katniss is not there yet. She's not in love with Peeta yet, and I actually don't think she is, or she even starts to be in love with him until book 2, when Finnick has to resuscitate him.
Yeah.
I think that's when she starts to realize, oh, actually, I like him. But she says here, never having been in love, this is going to be a real trick. Page 261. Like, faking it is going to be hard. And so she thinks of her parents as the example of true love that she needs to follow, which is great that she has true love role models to give her an example of that. But I think most importantly for her character is that she has seen how the loss of that love can destroy a person.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to be destroyed like that. And so she's already hesitant to go into this. But that brings us to chapter 20.
Katniss, I think, is just afraid of being powerless in general. And I think if we were to categorize her, she would be one of those people that would say love is weakness.
Yeah, well, Gale is one of those people.
Yeah. But chapter 20, moving into it a little bit more, Katniss continues to care for Peeta, even though she knows being with him has made her more vulnerable. She just has to trust that she did the right thing by finding him. So she sleeps during the day. When she wakes up, she checks on Peeta's wound and finds blood poisoning. So he has gotten considerably worse. He tries to lie to Peeta about it, but he sees right through her lie. And he knows how serious that is. You know what's interesting is that she tries to lie to him, but she doesn't lie to Rue when Rue is dying. I just made that connection. Anyway, so he knows how serious his injury is, so she makes some food, Peeta eats it, and he asks for a story. Katniss tells the reader the true story of how she got Prim's goat, paying for it with the money from a buck that she took down with Gale, but because she doesn't want to implicate anyone else in the story, she tells Peeta that she got the money by selling an old locket, and that the goat was seriously wounded when she bought it, but Prim healed it. So kind of a feel-good story about, okay, I got my sister this pet goat, and it lived. That night, the game makers announce a feast that will have something each of the tributes desperately need. Katniss promises Peeta not to go, even though the feast will probably be his only chance at getting medicine to combat the blood poisoning. He argues with her, tells her no, and she says, okay, fine, I won't go. But as she's out gathering more food and firewood and everything like that, Katniss receives sleep syrup from Haymitch and tricks Peeta into taking it so that she can go to the feast. So she forces it down his throat, and within seconds, he is unconscious. So a lot going on here. I just picked up on this, but it's interesting that she tries to lie to Peeta about his state of being, but doesn't lie to Rue. That's interesting to me.
Yeah. Do you think that Peeta is less worn down by the world than Katniss and Rue are? Because I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's grown up part of the privileged class, and I could see how she wouldn't want to destroy some of that innocence that was already long destroyed in Rue and her.
And I mean, I wouldn't even go so far as to say he's like privileged, but in terms of the District 12, yeah, he's privileged. So maybe.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't have to go hungry.
No.
Which in District 12 is a privilege.
Exactly.
Surprise, surprise, Peeta has blood poisoning.
Yeah.
Wow. And right when Katniss got there, it was not the wisest decision for him to lie in the mud for several days with an open wound.
Maybe not.
And actually, I'm going to say it, lying in the mud was a stupid-ass decision.
No.
According to mayoclinic.org, blood poisoning, which is not a medical term, refers to the presence of bacteria or infection in the blood. It can lead to sepsis and septic shock, which lead to organ failure and possibly death. Blood poisoning can be treated in a hospital with IV antibiotics. The earlier, the better. Mm-hmm. So what Peeta really needs is a doctor, but he's not going to get one out here. So if he goes into septic shock in the arena, there will be no saving him.
The clock is ticking down.
Yes, which is why that medicine is so urgent. So urgent. Yes.
Oddly enough, Katniss manages to make soup without a fire, so okay.
It's hot enough to fry an egg on the Memento. If anybody catches that vague-ass Muppets reference, I will be surprised. There was an entire song about it. I don't know why I remember it to this day. Anyway, Peeta asks Katniss to tell him about the happiest day of her life. And she goes on to tell him about Prim and the goat and how she got the goat for Prim. And here's where we're going to discuss a little bit more about killing animals versus killing people, and why she's squeamish about one and not the other. Because at the first part of this story that she only tells the reader, not Peeta, she says she felt a little bit guilty about killing the beautiful young buck in the woods, but her hunger was more important than the beauty of the animal. So that led me to think maybe that's the difference between her squeamishness about wounds versus killing animals, is that animals die for useful causes and humans die for no reason at all.
I think that could be part of it. I also wonder if it has to do with a feeling of closeness to animals. I'm much more willing to fix an open wound than kill an animal, much like Prim is. And Katniss is the exact opposite. She'd much rather kill an animal than fix an open wound. And I think that's because she doesn't see animals as companions the way Prim does and the way I do. But what do you think about that?
Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely part of it. Like, we've seen Katniss, even if she wasn't intending to eat the kitten Buttercup, she was going to drown the kitten.
Yeah.
It's one of the first things we learn about her. And so, even if there isn't a practical use to the animal's death, it's, I mean, in a way, it almost is more caring. It's limiting suffering.
Maybe.
And limiting pain, and death is an easy solution to a lot of things. And death is the easiest solution often for animals. Like when, unfortunately, you have to put a pet down. But just because she's willing to put them down doesn't mean that she isn't close to them.
I think that might be giving her a little bit more compassion towards animals than I think she's demonstrated so far. But it's definitely an idea. To me, it seems like her thinking is very black and white. Is it going to die? Should it die? Will it die? Yes, no. That sort of thing. But you could be onto something with the compassion, putting something down, that sort of thing.
I kind of am thinking of that Hamilton quote, dying is easy, living is harder.
That's true. It's a great quote. I mean, and speaking of this whole thing, you definitely see people who have a gift for caring for others. You know, we have a friend whose mom is an ER doctor, and she sees a lot of shit on a daily basis. And that is not a gift that I have. And that's not a gift that everybody has. You know, you definitely meet people who have this ability to focus in and be on the task, be on target, not be squeamish, and just and do what needs to be done, medically speaking. And it's kind of interesting looking at the dichotomy between Prim and Katniss, because Prim, especially later on in the series, definitely has this ability to just turn it on, and she will go and she'll get shit done, right? Like she will stay still and get things together. So I kind of started wondering, what are the psychological traits of doctors? You know, again, going back to me, I am gifted of not being exceedingly squeamish. I can handle stuff like open wounds, and, you know, when things need to get done, they need to get done. But medical field, medical profession, it's definitely not my gift. I consider being a veterinarian. Couldn't do it. Tending to the wounded, I can't do it. Especially, I hate when people vomit or are like lacking mental faculties. If they're so sick or just dying and just kind of out of it, I can't deal with that kind of thing. But other people can, and some people are really good at it. So I Googled, you know, traits of a doctor. And the first thing that came up was compassion. Katniss is already out. So she's out of the running. But also what I found was a lot of agreeableness or self-awareness. But I really think there must be some kind of chemical difference between those of us who can't do medicinal things and those who can. You know, there must be something in our brains that allows for us to, you know, make those distinctions. Otherwise, everyone would feel confident being a doctor. Everyone would feel confident doing, I don't know, astrophysics or being a, you know, math. I don't know. There's something in there that is innate to our brain chemistry that allows for some people to be medically inclined or able to do these difficult tasks while others can't, or others don't feel inclined to do so. And whether that's nature or nurture, I don't know. I hear a lot of stories about people who have had experiences within the medical field as patients, and that inspired them to join their chosen profession. So, you know, a lot of people have, you know, if they've been chronically ill throughout their lives, or if they were in an accident and they were really amazed by the doctors around them, you know, that's a story that you hear time and time again about, oh, I was really inspired by the nurses who took care of me, or the surgeon who took care of me, and that's why I decided to become a doctor. So that's interesting. But then I also wonder how much of it is nature and how much of it is nurture, because it's interesting that Prim has this sense of, she's not squeamish the way Katniss is, but she's grown up in virtually the same environment that Katniss had. You know, so is it really nature or is it really nurture? Because what makes them so different? Which leads me to think maybe it's something in the brain that we don't really necessarily have a lot of knowledge on, that kind of distinguishes people into their different states of mind and being able to handle blood, or handle killing an animal, or handle caring for the sick, or caring for the mentally handicapped, being able to care for going on and doing all of these different things. Because certainly everyone has different gifts, and to me, I think it must be something in the brain that we haven't yet really looked into.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder, with Prim and Katniss, what I keep going back to is coping mechanisms. The fact that Katniss coped with her father's death by running into the woods, and that Prim has coped with her father's death by learning how to heal others to prevent others' fathers from dying.
Yeah.
In a way, like, that is nature. Like, people's psychology and how their brain works is just so incredibly complicated. I can't begin to summarize how, or like compartmentalize what would be nature, what would be nurture in this. Because there are so many factors. Even people who have become doctors, it's not one incident that makes them want to be a doctor. It was mostly a gradual buildup of things that compounded into a mission. Or really anyone who has a vocation like that and a calling to do the work that they do.
Yeah.
People are complicated.
Yeah. We have so much to learn.
And I can't decipher everything. So speaking of complicated people, let's move on from doctors and talk about the goat man.
Yeah, Goat Man.
Have you ever watched BuzzFeed Unsolved?
No. And I keep on
Well,
hearing
there's-
about it, but I know I should.
Goat Man, I'm dancing on your bridge, Goat Man. This is my bridge
Praise
now.
Goat, through all blessings flow.
Yes,
We
our
worship
friends
the goat
worship
at
the goat.
Disneyland, everybody. By the way, that's our chosen religion is the goat on Thunder Mountain.
Yes.
The goat through
Every
which
time
all
something
blessings flow.
good happens, they say, praise goat.
Praise goat.
Yes. But the Goat Man has a bridge somewhere in the east. It's like a haunted bridge or something. Goat Man, if you want me off this bridge, you're gonna have to kill me. You should watch that clip of BuzzFeed Unsolved. It's hilarious. Because all the time,
I will have to.
Shane is saying that, and Ryan is just over the side because he actually believes in the Goat Man. And he's like, holy shit, no, don't do this.
Oh my gosh.
It's hilarious. Anyway, the Goat Man. The Goat Man is an interesting character because he is just a dude in District 12 who has a lot of goats and brings them to market to sell their milk and to sell them. And so he's selling
Righteous.
the goat that Katniss ends up buying for Prim for a discounted price because she's been wounded. She's been mauled by a dog. And the butcher, in a very kind act, the butcher Ruba, because Katniss gave her a buck and sold her a buck that morning, and because she's a fair person, she goes on with Goatman about how, oh, I can't even use this goat for meat. Like you said, like, I'm not going to buy this goat from you like you wanted me to. This is useless. And she winks, and that's how Katniss gets the goat for cheap.
Yee.
I just thought that was a hilarious little story. And, I mean, really gives us more insight into District 12 because we didn't spend a lot of time in District 12 at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, we've been told that a lot of people are kind to Katniss because they knew her father and because she hunted for them. But here we see it in action. She has a reputation, and she has friends in high places. Higher than the Goat Man, but never higher than the goat.
Never.
Yes. So the feast. The feast is going to happen.
The beast.
Katniss is getting a lot of gifts in a very short amount of time, which makes me wonder, like, how many people are actually sponsoring her. But
She's also
whatever.
about to roofie Peeta a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. For a good cause. Not to hurt him. Yeah, so she receives the sleep medicine, and it will make Peeta conveniently sleep for an entire day so that she can get away to get the medicine that he needs from the feast.
How convenient. Also, why didn't I get this sleep medicine? What kind of sleep medicine is this? And why didn't I get it as a kid? All I got was Triaminic. And if anyone remembers that shit, it's disgusting. I can still taste it in my mouth and how horrible and traumatizing it was. And it ruined artificial grape flavor for me. It had to be shoved down my throat whenever I took it. And I remember sobbing when it was shoved down my throat. Thanks, Mom. No. Why can't I have the sweet sleep medication like that? No, I got the gross purple gross shit that I can literally still taste it in my mouth. So that's for childhood
Benadryl,
trauma.
baby. I actually didn't mind Benadryl. Yeah, it's better, but
No. I had horrible experiences. That's where the chapter also ends up. Like, that's where we leave off. It's like, okay, he's going to sleep now. Good night.
shh. Go to sleep, Peeta. Go to sleep.
Go sleep. And then we're going to go to the feast. And we are coming down to the wire on this. Isn't there only like
Feast.
24 chapters?
I want to say 26.
Okay. We're getting down to the crux of it, and shit's about to go down.
Yeah, we're 3/4 of the way through the book. So yeah, it's about to go down.
Tune in next time.
Yeah, so thank you for listening to this episode of Let's Unpack That. We'll be back in 2 weeks
Yeah.
with chapters 21 and 22 of The Hunger Games. I don't know what happens in those yet, but we'll find out.
Well, we will.
Yes. Until then, we are on Twitter at Let's Unpack Pod. You can email us at doitforthevamps@gmail.com. And we are on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify soon. I figured out how to submit us there. So we'll be on
Yeah.
Spotify soon. SoundCloud, and I think that's it.
Also, this thing called Castbox, which is apparently, I don't know if it's just on Androids, but that's where my friend Jen, hi Jen, that's where she was listening to our podcast today. So go Castbox and
Yay.
to our single follower on Castbox. Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or just want to talk to us and validate our existences, please do. We love it. Stay safe.
Yes.
You know, we're kind of coming through this COVID-19 business, and you know, as states are starting to open back up, just remember, keep yourself safe. Still, really limit your contact with other people. Everything's going to be okay. We are all going to get through this. We're coming through it now, and hopefully now we're seeing a brighter light at the end of the tunnel. Stay
Yes.
safe, everybody.
Yeah, patience, young grasshoppers. Stop protesting. You're going to get sick. California has actually proven quite successful at flattening the curve so far.
Yeah.
Go California.
Go California.
Again, we'll see you in 2 weeks. And until then,
Let's get this bread and stay safe. Let's get this bread and an appropriate social distance.
yes, let's get this bread 6 feet apart. Toss it. Toss it.
Yeah.